According to a television announcement, the second princess of the Vermillion Empire, Stella Vermillion, is reportedly visiting Japan. She received the highest ratings among Tokyo's strongest knights and was admitted to Hagun Academy. Ikki Kurogane is now a blazer and a magical knight. A blazer can cause the soul to appear as armor and exert powers. Ikki walks into his room after returning from jogging and finds Stella as she is getting dressed. In front of her, he also removes his clothes. Ikki was subsequently called into the director's office, where Kurono reprimanded him for his inappropriate actions. He apologizes to Stella for acting inappropriately. Stella becomes enraged, but the director tells them they will now be roommates. The director explains to them that Ikki is known as the worst one since he is the Academy's weakest member. Ikki must comply with Stella's 3 demands: that he stop talking, breathe, and open his eyes. The idea put forth by the director is to engage in a mock battle, with the winner dictating the loser. The loser will follow the winner for the rest of his life, according to Stella. On the 4th training field, they engage in a mock battle and Ikki ultimately prevails, surprising everyone including Stella. She enters Ikki's room, where she touches his body and entices him. Ikki then reminds her of a commitment to serve him. Stella wants to live with him, but she is claimed to be a virgin because he wants to be closer to her. Stella and Ikki are walking through the park, and now they are close to each other, and even they drink water from the same bottle. He tells Stella that his sister Shizuku will be coming to the academy. They enroll in Miss Yuri Oriki's class, where she informs them of the 7-star Battle Festival selection match. She reiterates the director's statement that the top 6 winners will represent their schools. Stella offers to participate in the Battle Festival, but Ikki claims he has no interest in doing so. Ikki encounters Kagemi, a girl who was in his class. Ikki declined her request to interview him. Shizuku startled everyone by kissing him. Shizuku defended herself by saying that it was entirely usual in many nations. Stella and Shizuku fight, and the director makes them both clean the bathrooms for a week as retribution for using electronics in class without authorization. Why is Ikki treated as though he never existed? Shizuku queries Stella. Ikki shares with Stella the story of his grandfather Ryoma, the wartime leader of Japan. Ikki aspires to be his grandfather, but his family has ignored him since he lacks the talent of his forefathers. He had seen his grandfather, who had encouraged him to keep going and had taken him back to his house. Shizuku shares Ikki's story with her roommate. While Ikki is in the bath, Stella enters the bathroom. She entices him by washing his body and showing him her private areas. Then Stella slaps him. He learns that Stella and Momotani are going to fight. He attempts to inform Stella of her opponent, but she rejects him. After receiving an invitation from Shizuku, Stella and Ikki visit a mall where they are having fun. Ikki reaches out to clean Shizuku's face while it still had cream on it, which makes Shizuku feel ashamed while she is enjoying some sweets. Stella had tried to get Ikki to do the same with her with various results. Naji's friendship with Shizuku is acknowledged by Ikki. Ikki called Kurono, who told her that when several terrorists entered the mall, the incident had already made the news and that police had surrounded the mall. Stella and Shizuku are seen with the captives at the very moment. A lady shouts out for one of the terrorists to stop hurting her kid, but the assailant has already started trying to kill the youngster. However, Stella steps in to save him. Vishra, the leader of the terrorists, stops Stella and uses her power against her as she tries to save the mother. They get into a violent fight, but eventually, a blazer by the name of Kirihara saves them all. Kirihara's popularity with girls makes Shizuku and Stella dislike him. Ikki gives Kirihara praise for rescuing them. Kirihara is compared to Ikki by Stella, who uses this to defend him. It is made known that Ikki's first battle opponent is Kirihara. Naji and Stella triumph in their first games. When Ikki first met Kirihara, he suggested they fight so that Ikki's fighting skills would be recognized by the staff. Ikki watches Kirihara's match, and they both discuss his abilities. He assures Stella that he will win against Kirihara. He tells Naji about the incident. He refused, but Ikki started fighting with him. Ikki says he'll never give up and keep building his strength. He runs into Nin Seikyo, who gives him private lessons. But Kurono intervenes and yanks Nin away from Ikki. When Kirihara and Ikki fight, where Kirihara can easily take out Ikki with a single shot, Kirihara activates his sphere of invisibility, conjures up a forest, and starts shooting arrows towards Ikki. Stella is surprised that Ikki is not using techniques, and Nigo tells him that his anxiety causes him to lose his regular frame of mind. Ikki gets further discouraged as the audience joins in on Kirihara's ridicule of her and starts chanting "Worst One" under Kirihara's direction. Stella instructs Ikki to stand up and exhorts her to defend herself against Kirihara. Kirihara battles Ikki and Kirihara concedes defeat. Ikki is taken to the hospital for treatment, and when he awakens he discovers Stella dozing at his bedside. Ikki tries to show his love for Stella, but she stops him and tells him to close his eyes. He holds her as she kisses him on the cheeks. They both pledge to take part in the decisive conflict. Stella is practicing fighting and thinking about her relationship with Ikki. A few girls from Ikki's class wanting to teach them swordsmanship after he wins another battle. Stella accuses him of being overly generous. As a way to express her jealousy, Ikki falls asleep before she can finish her explanation about their relationship. He is then interrupted by 5 freshmen who appear envious of the women's attention he was receiving throughout their training session. He promptly disarms the armed blazers and enrolls them as new students after they apologize for their behavior. Shizuku offers him a drink after Stella asks if he's thirsty in an attempt to give him some water. Stella continues to drink while sobbing, but nobody else notices. Naji handed Stella a game to play in which she talks to a man who resembles Ikki. The following day, when everyone is at the pool for training, Stella participates on her own, concentrating on her inward journey. Shizuku converses with Naji about his brother while she talks about her love story with Kagami. After verbally sparring over their 2-week romance, Ikki and Stella finally kiss at a fountain. When they are returning, they both get messages from their upcoming rivals, Seiju and Tomoru, who are also student council members. They both can be seen practicing inside the student council office, as this is happening in preparation for their impending conflict with their connected foes. Seiju is fighting Stella using his weight accumulation, which enables him to make his device heavier with each swing, while Ikki is fighting Tomoru, as she already employs her grid noble art. Even after using Tomoru's Blackwood technique and Seiju's crescendo axe, Stella and Ikki remain unconquered. Shizuku is attempting to approach Ikki when Stella becomes irritated. Ayase, a girl, chases Ikki and accidentally falls into the water. Stella is informed by Shizuka that Ayase's father was a skilled swordsman who participated in numerous contests. Ayase is invited to join Ikki in his sword sparring session. In the woods, Ikki works with Ayase to improve her stance. Ikki expresses regret for touching Ayase. However, Ayase wasn't bothered. With wooden swords, Stella and Ayase are practicing while Stella praises Ayase's skill. After that, Ikki, Stella, and Ayase go to a diner where they argue with Kurado. To Stella's surprise, Ikki doesn't respond. Later, Ikki reveals why he was unable to compete with Kurado. A youngster claims that Kurado was one of the top 8 out of 7 sword arts festivals and the ace of the Danro Academy. Ikki's wounds are treated by Yutakata, a student council representative. When Ikki and Ayase learn they will face one another in the upcoming competition, Ayase decides not to practice and summons Ikki to see her alone. Ikki ignores Naji's warnings about Ayase and goes to meet her. Ayase asks Ikki what he would do if he came up against a foe he could never beat. Ikki replies that he will always engage in fair combat. After drawing her device, Ayase somehow manages to breach the fence behind her, but Ikki saves her, and they both fall into the water. Ikki trips and falls on top of Stella, as she is having a dream about her. Ikki starts to explain what happened the previous evening to them, but Kurono, who wanted Ikki to accompany her, interrupts her. Ikki then inquires about Ayase, and Kurono responds by describing Ayase's father. Ayase keeps in mind her father's words of wisdom to never let her pride in being a swordsman fade. Ikki and Ayase are fighting, and Ayase attempts to use the Mark of the Wind against him. To Ayase's surprise, however, Ikki can avoid it. Ikki gets knocked to the ground by Ayase's use of her Hizum, but he can defend himself by using the irregular guard on the hilt of his sword to block the assault. Ikki recalls the conversation he had with Yuri regarding Ayase's cheating. They both make every effort to win, and although Ayase employs every tactic at her disposal to evade Ikki, she eventually concedes defeat and Ikki prevails in the match. Due to their closeness, Ikki offers Ayase the opportunity to regain her pride. Holding Ikki's hand, Ayase requests assistance. Ayase's father, Kaido Ayatsuji, retired during Ayase's junior high years due to heart issues, but he continued to teach Ayase. Kurado, a man who unofficially assaults nearby schools, is being discussed by Ayase, Ikki, and Stella. She explains to them how Kaido was defeated by Kurado in the Ayatsuji dojo. Kurado was the target of Kaido's secret technique, which nearly worked. However, Kaido had started to cough up blood and was unable to grip the sword, collapsing to the ground as a result, giving Kurado the victory. Kurado is discovered by Ikki, Stella, and Ayase in the dojo. Kurado accepts Ikki's challenge to engage in combat and pulls out his weapon. Ikki draws his Tetsu, and the duel starts. Ikki halts his assaults after being repeatedly hit by Kurado throughout the fight. Stella then observes Kurado's vulnerability, which is that employing marginal counter requires more energy, which causes him to lose stamina more quickly than Ikki. while Stella and Ayase are discussing their techniques. They both keep modifying them. Ikki suddenly prevails in the struggle as Kurado's device vanishes. Ayase gets expelled from the match school for 10 days after it was discovered that she had cheated during a battle with Ikki. Ikki is made aware of Ayase's father's conscience-entering experience. Naji and Shizuku interrupt Ikki and Stella as they attempt to hold hands. Ayase holds her father's hand, who is in conscience now. After winning their 11th match in a row, Stella and Ikki are heading to Okutama for training. Shizuku can be seen seeming very furious at her inability to prevent Stella and Ikki from traveling alone. Stella and Ikki have started getting along better. Stella and Renren play badminton, and when the student council was requested to clean the lounge where they were staying, Stella was enlisted, since they needed additional help. All of the pupils then head to the waterfall. When Stella becomes ill, her father calls Shizuku. Ikki then assists Stella in removing her clothing because she is barely able to do so on her own. Shizuku's father explains to her that he was curious about how she was doing and even expresses his pride in her for winning 12 straight games. When Ikki exits the cottage, he discovers a massive golem perched on it. Before the golem destroys the cabin, Ikki manages to defend Stella from its onslaught. The smaller golems close in on Stella, pushing Ikki off to the side. Ikki is immobile, but the student manages to save Stella. Ikki was unsure about what to do when a girl wearing a Hagun Academy uniform and glasses enters and claims that all golems, no matter how far away, are under control. She eliminates every tiny golem. Shizuku learns that Tuka herself will be her next opponent in a preliminary battle. Shizuku beams in anticipation of the test Tuka will set for her. Shizuku recalls her time spent in the Kurogane household, and she recalls how she had everything she desired until young. Ikki slapped her and corrected her. Ikki, Stella, and Naji are perusing a puppet article. Shizuku also causes them concern. Shizuku is interrupted by Stella while having a shower, and Naji drags Shizuku outside to discuss their concerns about her. He advises her to triumph over Tuka. The match starts when Shizuku and Tuka pull out their weapons. Utakata is seen at the match conversing with Kaneda, and he agrees that at least from afar the bout appears to be quite close. Ikki says that Shizuku's mind is being missiled by Nukiyoshi, causing it to interpret her movements as superfluous data. To defeat one another, they each employ distinct strategies. After a bloody struggle, Tuka defeats Shizuku, and the two tumble to the ground. In the middle of the night, Alice, Stella, and Ikki are found with Shizuku in the hospital. Shizuku is praised by everyone for her bravery. Alice hugs Shizuku as he tells her she did well in her room. Then Itsuki is shown in his office, learning that Shizuku had fallen short. Itsuki said that he was free to act anyway, and was pleased when the man in the suit asked what he should do about the issue. Stella reminds Ikki of their agreement to compete in the 7 Sword Art Festival finals after the match. Stella conquers the 14th conflict. A photographer records them kissing while taking their picture. Kurono asks Ikki about Akaza, a lifelong student and member of the Night Ethics Committee. Ikki and Stella travel to the orphanage with their classmates. As the party spends the day playing with the children at the orphanage, Ikki, Tuka, and Utakeda prepare meals. Ikki likes Tuka's looks. Utakeda praises Tuka's abilities. He is being questioned by the members of the Ethics Committee about his relationship with Stella. Ikki and Stella are informed that information regarding their scandal has surfaced. When Stella easily defeated her 15th opponent, once more the audience started to whisper about her affair with Ikki as she left the stage. Ikki is then taken into the small holding cell. Ikki finds out that the Ethics Committee's office will be the site of his selection contest. Yuri is seen traveling with Ikki's foe. According to Kagami at Hagun Academy, Ikki came close to defeating Stella, Alice, and Shizuku in his conflicts before the Ethics Committee. Stella begins to doubt her relationship with Ikki and wonders if it would be best if they ended it. Ikki wins the duel against his opponent. Ikki discovers from his father that he wasn't contemptuous of him, rather he just didn't believe he could achieve anything. It is then announced that Ikki's final opponent in the opening rounds will be Tuka. Ikki begins to doubt the value of his might inside his cage after meeting his father. The orphanage's director and Tuka have a conversation. Shizuku worries about whether or not she should persuade Ikki to surrender his match, as she tells Naji about her conversation with Tuka. The selection match's last day kicks off with a big audience and is live broadcast on television. Ikki keeps in mind what his grandfather said. Ikki makes his way to the field with a lifted spirit. The struggle is being observed by Nin's master in the meantime. Ikki used an even more powerful maneuver which caused blood to pour out of his body. When everything is said and done, Ikki is declared the winner and Tuka falls to the ground. Akaza gets furious and rushes to the field to kill Ikki. While shoving him aside, Stella prevents Ikki from passing out. Itsuki and the Vermillion Emperor had a conversation about keeping their kids out of illicit adult relationships. Ikki serves as their commander, while the Hagur sisters Alice, Stella, and Kaneda are chosen as the representatives.